Okay, Director Budge?
Here.
Director Harris?
Here.
Director Howell?
Here.
Director Hume?
Here.
Director Jennings?
Here.
Director Kennedy?
Here.
Director Natoli?
Here.
Director Chenier?
Here.
Director Cerna?
Here.
Director Valenzuela?
Here.
And Chair Miller?
Here.
Okay, with that, we have a quorum at 100 votes. And this meeting of the Sacramento Regional Transit District will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel, on Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse. Today's meeting will air on Wednesday, October 27th at 2 p.m. and Friday, October 29th at 6 p.m. on channel 14 and webcast at metro14live.saccounty.net and is closed caption. This meeting can also be viewed at youtube.com/Metro Cable 14.
Thank you, Tabitha. And with that, would everyone please unmute their mics and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're getting better. All right, if you'd call the next item, please.
So the next item, the consent calendar, items 2.1 to 2.12. We do have one emailed public comment for item 2.8 and a response from, actually, I'm sorry, we just have an item, public comment for item 2.8.
Okay, before I take that, is there any questions or issues from the directors?
Steve, I simply didn't understand what the issue was regarding 2.8.
We're going to get to that.
Great.
Yeah, are there any other items with questions?
Move approval of the balance of the consent calendar.
Second.
A motion by Budge, second by Howell. Is that correct?
Correct.
For 2.1 through 2.7 and 2.9.2.12. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Director Budge,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Aye.
Director Howell,
Yes.
Director Hume,
Aye.
Director Jennings,
Yes.
Director Kennedy,
Aye.
Director Natoli,
Aye.
Director Chenier,
Aye.
Director Cerna,
Aye.
Director Valenzuela,
Yes.
and Chair Miller.
Aye.
Okay, with that, for the consent calendar, items 2.1 to 2.12, with the exception of 2.8, we have a quorum at 100 votes.
Thank you very much. And would you please call item 2.8, please?
So item 2.8, resolution delegating authority to the general manager / CEO to award contract and contracts for supplemental paratransit services.
Okay, and go ahead with the public comment.
And the public comment is from Helen O'Connell. And her question is the supplemental paratransit service going to be put in effect in January, and how will it be implemented? Do people have to be outside the window a certain length of time before they are qualified for supplemental service? Or does the supplemental service automatically get implemented because we're short drivers? And also, I would like to announce that as far as the public comment is concerned, please know that SAC-RT staff will be responding directly to members of the public as well.
I'm happy to move the item.
Well, I wasn't sure what Helen was referring to, so I asked if there could be a little explanation of the question she's asking.
Chair and Director Budge, common our VP of Operations. She can provide a brief explanation.
Thank you, Henry.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. In response to that comment, I did draft a response. Basically, we are in the RFP process, which is a confidential negotiation, so I can't really get into the detail or any operational detail. But what I can do is say that the trips that will be covered by our supplemental service providers will not be determined by a pickup window. The trips will be identified by SACRT staff the day prior, and then we'll notice our service provider. So we will control those trips that will be brokered out or outsourced a day prior. I can share that much. And to answer the rest of her question, we are expecting to make these supplemental services available shortly after January 2022. Also, there's an opportunity for SACRT Go customers and the Mobility Advisory Council to ask questions and learn more about our service prior to that implementation. So later in the fall, we're going to have more opportunities, including open houses and discussions at the MAC council.
So that's the place they'll get a fuller explanation of the program.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Okay, let's go back. I heard a motion.
Chenier moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Powell is a second. Please call the roll.
Director Budge,
Yes.
Director Howell.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Director Harris
Aye.
and Director Howell.
Yes.
Director Hume,
Aye.
Director Jennings,
Yes.
Director Kennedy,
Aye.
Director Natoli,
Aye.
Director Chenier,
Aye.
Director Cerna,
Aye.
Director Valenzuela,
Yes.
and Chair Miller.
Aye.
And with that, we have a quorum at 100 votes. And Chair Miller, did you want to ask for public comment?
On are you referring to any?
For the public, for the,
I thought we were on to unfinished business.
well, I was thinking, which it's a little after the fact, that we needed to take public comment on the consent calendar.
Oh, I wasn't aware there was any except for that one item. Is there more?
Well, I don't know. Well, there was the email item, but I think we need to ask the public that's in attendance if they have a comment on the public comment on the consent calendar.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't we usually do that before we vote on it?
I know.
Well, I thought that's what we did.
Well, we had the email, but I didn't actually ask the people participating if they wanted to raise their hand or.
Are we making sausage here?
You're watching it being made. Is there anybody who wished to have commented on that before we move on to the next item? Please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting. And I'm not seeing any hand raised. Are you?
Nope.
Okay. Next item, please.
That worked out. Sorry about that.
That's okay. You were concerned about it. Got to keep me in line.
Okay. So the next item is unfinished business, item 4.1, information item, SACRT final network integration plan. Laura Ham is here to present this item.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Miller and board members. I'm just going to go ahead and share a very brief PowerPoint here. Just give me 1 second. You able to see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just give me 1 second here.
It's very
I apologize. Okay, I'm ready now. Can you still see the screen?
Yes. Yeah.
So tonight's agenda item finalizes our network integration plan, which is a requirement of our 2018 TIRCP grant for new light rail vehicles for the Gold Line. The draft plan was presented at the July 27th board meeting and was available for public review from June 7th through July 31st. The plan's goal is to ensure that major state-funded rail projects connect cohesively with the state rail system, and its primary subject is future Gold Line service, future bus service to the Sac Valley Station and the rail yards, and integration of fares into a statewide system. SAC-RT has several related projects on the Gold Line, including conversion to low-floor vehicles and stations, new sidetrack on the Folsom segment to provide for 15-minute service, and the SVS Loop project in downtown. The network plan analyzes and makes recommendations for service changes as these projects come online. The plan also looks at downtown bus circulation to Sac Valley Station, which, as you know, will undergo major expansion and renovations. We've also taken a look at the potential extension of several bus lines into the rail yards. As I shared with you back in July, the network plan is primarily a technical study and does not propose service changes. Before implementing any major service changes, SAC-RT would conduct additional public engagement and Title VI analysis as required. Regarding expenditures, this project is limited to the grant funding received under the TIRCP program. Caltrans has been our sponsor for the project, and the final version will be transmitted to them. Our staff and consulting team at AECOM has also been greatly assisted by numerous partners, both within the agency and externally. Our discussions have refined our plans to implement the new service that will be made possible by our modernization program. Comments from several of our partner agencies were received and are included in Appendix D, where we believe we responded to all comments. One of the key outcomes of the comment process is that we decided to scale back the number of bus routes we would extend into the rail yards from 4 to 2 bus routes, which will reduce future operating costs and avoid the need for a larger scale multi-block on-street bus terminal. We'd be glad to answer any questions you might have about the plan. Our project manager for this effort, James Drake, SAC-RT's principal planner, and I are available to answer any questions, as well as our consultant, Anthony Manganon from AECOM. I'd like to thank them both for their tremendous effort on this study. Assuming the board does not request any additional changes, today's item will complete our project and the final plan will be transmitted to Caltrans, completing our requirement under the TIRCP grant. We are requesting a motion to approve the plan tonight and would be glad to address any questions that you have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Are there any questions? Seeing any?
I'll move the item.
Motion by Hal.
Second.
Do you want to?
Do we need to have a public hearing?
Public comment.
Yeah, do you want to do public comment?
I'm waiting for a second. Hold on.
I still have faith in you, Chair. I just want you to know that.
I thought Hume seconded.
Hume will second if that moves it along.
Thank you, Patrick. Now, Tabitha, is there any public comment?
Okay, so there is no email public comment, but we can now take public comment on item 4.1. And if you're participating by phone, please push *9 to indicate a desire to comment. And if you're joining us online on Zoom, please push the raise hand button.
And I'm not seeing anything.
I see one.
Okay, would you please activate their microphone?
So this is going to be a phone call ending in 721.
Hello.
Hi, can you please voluntarily state your name for the record?
Yes, and I'm probably not on the correct item. My name is Sabrina Hawker. I think the item I wanted to comment on probably passed that, but I'm not sure. So really, I'm asking a question about when I should comment, and I apologize for if I'm out of order.
Sabrina, you're not out of order. What item would you like to comment on?
Okay, it has to do with the SAC-RT Go, and I know there was mention of subcontracting, et cetera. So that's really where I want to come in at, but I don't know if that missed. I was trying to figure out how to unmute on the phone. I was actually trying to get in the Zoom room, but I haven't been able to on the computer.
I understand. Why don't you go ahead with your comments? You have 3 minutes.
Okay, so I know I only have 3 minutes, so I'm going to let my computer has a speech reader accessible, and I made notes. So it's probably faster if I just let my notes be read. Is that okay?
This is for you to speak to us in your own words.
Okay, well, let me pull up my notes then. I have them right here. I just didn't want you guys to have to hear them in the background. So, reason I'm here, and I did put my notes on a digital recorder. Okay. Because I'm not able to see the screen here.
Related to paratran's rights, and how soon can we expect remedies?
Okay, so I just have a list of questions. They don't have to be answered today, but it's 4 questions. One is, because I'm using SAC-RT Go, is what is the board or management doing to address the issues related to the ongoing violations of the ADA and how soon we can expect remedies? I heard a portion of that answered. My second question is, while subcontracting is a great first step, I realize these things take time. So I'm just wondering if there's been any contact with other jurisdictions, like the East Bay Transit, San Diego MTS. I used San Diego service for 3 months. It was great. I also talked to them and the East Bay, and they don't seem to be having the issues. San Diego has had no complaints reported, and then East Bay has had minimal. So I'm just wondering if there's been a contact made with the other jurisdictions just to get their ideas, information on how they continue to run smoothly, even during the COVID times, okay? The other is, has anyone on the RT staff done the math to, with respect to how much what the losses is, so how can I phrase this without reading it? Has anyone done the math to determine if the losses related to what's going on now, how that measures up to giving a slight increase of pay to the driver? And when I say the losses, how much loss is there related to driver turnover, having to train new staff, losses associated with the number of riders who have just thrown in the towel and given up and found other methods of transporting, and then people like me who's considering not even buying any more monthly passes, but instead having that $137.50 per month contribute towards all the Lyft and Uber rides that I'm having to take as a result of getting stranded literally for an hour, hour and a half past the ready time. We're out here with the drivers, and I know
Sabrina, can you wrap, please? You're out of time. Can you wrap up, please?
So there's some math. That's all I'm asking about. Has that been done? And then my last question is, where would I submit a chronology of the incidents that I've encountered? Because I do have a chronology, and is it even useful at all at this point?
Sabrina, you're out of time. It's time for you to make your comments. Now, if I can get you answers to these questions, is it all right if staff calls the number you called on?
Yes.
Okay, I'll have someone contact you and answer these questions, because this is the time to make statements, and we really can't, since it's not on the agenda. It really talks. Sacramento, the SAC-RT Go is not on the agenda that I was aware of.
Okay, because I know there's a general. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Can this meeting be salvaged? We have a motion and a second. Alan, would you please call the roll?
Yeah, there was one more person with their hand up for public comment.
Okay.
Okay, so this is, actually, no, it looks like it's Sabrina's hand. I'm sorry, it was still 721.
All right, well, this whole Zoom thing's new for us, so
Okay, so we're good.
we're lots of fun. All right, please call the roll.
Okay, Director Budge.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Aye.
Director Howell.
Yes.
Director Hume.
Aye.
Director Jennings.
Yes.
Director Kennedy.
Yes, please.
Director Natoli.
Aye.
Director Chenier.
Aye.
Director Cerna.
Aye.
Director Valenzuela.
Yes.
And Chair Miller.
Aye.
Motion passes at 100 votes.
Very good. Next item, please.
The next item is number 6, public addresses the board on matters not on the agenda. I do have one emailed public comment in for this item, if you'd like me to read that now.
Yes, please.
The public comment is from Regina Marie from ACB Capital Chapter of CCB Inclusive Diversity of California Government Affairs. And she says, I am requesting that this item to be put on the agenda soon. There have been numerous complaints about service problems, including delays and long rides. This is due to a driver shortage that was anticipated by the Mobility Advisory Council. I would like to resolve not only current issues, but prevent them in the future. A pandemic or other emergency situation may arise. Failure to address the underlying issues now can mean further hardships down the road for riders and drivers. We are very concerned that the current process for rider and driver feedback is not meeting the needs of staff or customers.
Is that it?
That is it on the email, and it does look like a couple people have their hands raised for public comment. Except for one of them, I'm going to check in with Sabrina. Her hand is still raised. That might have been for the last one. It looks like we have Barbara Stanton.
Hello? Oh. Hello?
Hello?
Go ahead, Barbara.
Oh, hi, everybody. I'm glad you're on Zoom. This is a really interesting meeting today. I'm sure when you get going, it'll get better. I know you guys know what you're going to be doing. I just wanted to say hello and good to see you and good to hear you. And I'm happy that you can hear us. And that was it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm not seeing any other hands. Are you, Tabitha?
Nope, I just still see Sabrina's.
Yeah, that's probably from the last item. Let's move on to the next item, please.
Okay, so the next item we have is new business, item 7.1, resolution 21-10-0123, delegating authority to the general manager / CEO to negotiate and execute a facilities use agreement with the city of Sacramento for use of the Roseville Road Light Rail Station as a temporary safe parking site. And we have Chris Flores, Brent Berniger, and Lisa Hines here to present this item.
Thank you, Tab. For you this evening to discuss a proposal regarding a temporary safe parking light rail station parking lot. At the July 26th, an informational update regarding the City of Sacramento's comprehensive homeless master plan, a plan to create more than 5,000 beds and safe camping spaces in the City of Sacramento. Council unanimously adopted their plan at the August 10th, which includes 3 SAC-RT parking lots. During the July SAC-RT board meeting, staff was instructed to conduct additional outreach and community outreach and identify operational SAC-RT riders and ensure a successful program. Since that time, SAC-RT staff has had many meetings with the city, Caltrans, and FTA to discuss details. And we were fortunate tonight to have city staff and council member Liloli on this call as well. Next slide. The city of Sacramento has focused its attention on the Roseville Road Light Rail Station and homelessness at that corridor. As you can see on this slide, the station is long and linear as it was an old Caltrans freeway on-ramp. In total, there are 1,087 spaces, and on average pre-COVID, the station was over 50% full, well utilized by commuters on the corridor. Because of the nature of how SAC-RT received the encroachment permit from Caltrans, the site has numerous interest agencies complicating the approval process. Next slide. This slide has an overhead view of where the safe parking shelter would operate at the road station. You can see the boundaries of the program in the dotted blue line southwest of I-80 freeway. The light blue at the top right of the screen, the majority of people using the station park as close to the station platform as possible. Zooming in a little closer on the shelter map, you can see there will be space for administrative staff, restrooms, showers, storage, and dog kennels. The winter has been closed because of a homeless encampment fire that jeopardized its structural will remain closed. When staff updated the board regarding the City of Sacramento's proposal in July, board directed staff to talk with community groups and neighborhoods in each site to get their feedback and listen to their concerns. Lot PBID had sent an extensive letter to the City of Sacramento and SAC-RT regarding the proposal back in July, and we met with them on September 29th, and we went through each question in the letter and more. In conjunction with the city and council member Liloli's office, we held a community and neighborhood meeting on the evening of October 7th. Both meetings were well attended and excellent feedback. Some key takeaways from those meetings include: what is the city's long-term vision for addressing homelessness? What are the boundaries of the public safety zone? The need for additional security measures dedicated to the site, the impact on business surrounding area, and more. City and SAC-RT staff have been working on the operational details for the Roseville site. The city has agreed to the terms included in Roseville Road program guidelines. The city operator will adhere to these stipulations should the program launch. I would like to just highlight some key provisions in that program guideline. The program shall serve between 80 and 100 guests at one time. The site shall operate for 1 year with an option to extend. All parties shall reserve the right to them. The operator shall have trained staff on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The city will provide full indemnification to SAC-RT, as well as provide insurance or commitment to cover costs should any accidents, liabilities occur. Knowing that security is imperative, we have agreed to a number of safety provisions as well. I will now turn it over to Lisa Hines, VP of Security and Customer Satisfaction, to touch on some of these.
Thanks, Chris. Chair Miller, members of the board. Additional security will be needed with the introduction of the safe ground at the Roseville Road Light Rail Station. SAC-RT is requesting security guards inside and outside the safe ground. In accordance with the California Public Utility Commission, CPUC, recommendations, SAC-RT has asked the city to reimburse us for an external security guard. The city will staff a security guard inside the safe ground around the clock. SAC-RT is concerned about the amount of area designated as the public safety priority zone surrounding the safe parking location. Next slide. A safe parking priority zone prohibits additional encampments within the designated area. SAC-RT is proposing that the safe parking priority zone be large enough to prevent encampment from backfilling the entrance to the Roseville Road Light Rail Station, as well as under the freeway and bridge. A recent fire that occurred on September 8th, 2021, from homeless encampments that were directly under the Grand Avenue Bridge resulted in serious structural damage to the bridge. SAC-RT is contractually obligated to pay for repairs as a result of that fire to that bridge. The goal for SAC-RT would be to prevent a further incident such as this by asking the city to maintain a large enough area free of encampments. SAC-RT and the public have not yet been provided with a safety priority zone radius. And now I'll pass it to our CFO, Brent Berniger.
Thank you, Lisa. So for the past 2 months, we've been working, we've had several discussions with Caltrans and the FTA. Through those discussions, we've learned a lot, and now we have a great understanding of what's required to move this forward. Caltrans has an internal process that must be completed before consideration will be had and approvals can be made. The city of Sacramento will need to complete a review process called the DARC review. Much of this information has actually been provided to Caltrans, so they've started that process. Once it's completed, Caltrans can make a final determination. While we're waiting to hear back from Caltrans, we've had several discussions with the FTA. We've prepared a draft letter that we'll be sending shortly. Attached, it will have the guidelines as well as a map of the area. The FDA has also been briefed on this topic many times. Through that discussions, we've learned that their top concern is maintaining continuing control, as well as the ridership and security at that site. Now I'd like to turn it over to Olga to give you some more information.
Good evening, Chair Miller, members of the board and public. As mentioned earlier in the presentation by Chris, SAC-RT's presence at Roseville Road is governed by an encroachment permit issued to SAC-RT in 1984 for the light rail starter line. The property was an abandoned freeway right-of-way, and Caltrans agreed to allow SAC-RT to build its light rail station on that site. The site was improved by SAC-RT using FTA funds because SAC-RT does not own the underlying fee at Roseville Road and is thereby encroachment. SAC-RT approached Caltrans to seek permission to allow the city to install a safe parking facility at our Roseville Road Light Rail Station. The facilities use agreement that the parties have been negotiating is structured to be compliant with this arrangement. Unfortunately, late last week, Caltrans advised SAC-RT that it cannot allow us to transfer our encroachment rights to the city, and that the only path forward would be for Caltrans to revoke our existing encroachment permit, carve out the area the city wants to use for safe parking, and then deal directly with the city through a lease agreement or some other arrangement. The new proposed arrangement is problematic for SAC-RT for 2 reasons. First, the parking lot was constructed with FTA funding, and the FTA has a financial interest in the parking lot. If SAC-RT no longer has control or continuing control, as the guidelines require, over the parking lot because it has lost its encroachment permit, SAC-RT may be immediately required to reimburse the FTA for the value of the facility. If SAC-RT, the second concern we have is that if SAC-RT is no longer able to be in privity of contract with the city, SAC-RT will be limited in its ability to ensure the safety of the remainder of the station, its patrons, and its employees. Next slide, please. With this change in arrangement, the original resolution that staff attached to the staff report is no longer viable. Given that, staff recommends a revised resolution that will allow this project to continue moving forward while protecting SAC-RT's interests. Staff recommends that the board direct and authorize the general manager to negotiate a 3-party lease agreement between and among the city, Caltrans, and SAC-RT that would include the protections included in the facilities use agreement and the program guidelines that the parties have previously negotiated. Execution of such agreement would, of course, have to be contingent upon the FTA concurring in the action without the requirement that SAC-RT reimburse the FTA for the facility. Next slide, please. The final agreement should also include resolution over the following outstanding issues. The first is finalizing the type of agreement that will replace the facilities use agreement, and we think it would probably be a lease. Second is whether or not environmental clearance was appropriately performed and providing for SAC-RT's indemnification if it was not. Third is securing clarity from the city about the scope of the public safety zone. Fourth is ensuring that the city identify and provide a 24/7 point of contact at the city that can resolve issues that may arise at the safe parking site. Fifth is the city providing a final good neighbor policy document. Sixth is that the road, the Grand Avenue Bridge area be cleaned up. An additional issue that staff would like direction from the board on is the public safety priority zone. This issue has been raised as a very important issue to members of the public and to SACRT staff because we want to ensure that the areas surrounding the safe parking site do not attract additional uncontrolled encampments, thereby affecting SACRT's ability to provide clean, safe, and convenient transit to our passengers. SACRT staff would like to see a zone of at least half a mile radius around the Roseville site. As Lisa noted previously, we have asked the city for clarity on this, but to date, they have not shared their plans with us on what the zone would look like. We ask that the board provide guidance on what would be an acceptable radius. And with that, I turn it back over to Chris.
Thank you, Olga. And that concludes our presentation. I know we're happy to answer any questions. And as I shared before, we do have Council Member Laloli here with us who did nominate this site during the council approval process, as well as city staff from various departments.
Thank you, Chris, Lisa, and Olga. Any quick questions from board members? If not, I'll go to public comment.
I do.
I got my hand raised, Chair Miller.
Okay. Duly noted, Phil.
I don't have my hand raised, but I'll go after Phil.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out, Chris did not mention that I was also in attendance remotely or virtually at the October 7th community meeting. So I just want to make clear with my colleagues that I too was there in my capacity as a RT board member.
Thank you. And I'm remiss, and it was a very productive meeting, and I thought your comments along with Supervisor Desmond, who attended the previous meeting, were great.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. Given the change that, we thought this was going to move forward, and now there's the question of the FTA money having to be repaid, and the fact that this could turn into a lease. If this is going to be a lease, I assume there's going to be payment involved. And my suggestion would be that because this is being done pretty much at the request of the city of Sacramento, I would suggest that perhaps if there is going to be payment required on leasing of the property, assuming FTA and everybody else is willing to do that, including Caltrans, that whatever that lease payment is should be paid by the city of Sacramento. I don't know if that's been discussed or not.
I agree with Carrie.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
It just seems like there's so many open-ended questions at this point that perhaps it's not yet time to take a vote.
Okay, well, let's go to public comment.
And I do have one other comment. And I would
right now, just questions.
It's a question.
Okay.
I think basically we need to get a little bit more information about what that additional, I'm not sure if you guys called it a safe zone or what it was called, but the ability to limit encampments within some distance of the entrance. And my only other concern about that is whether or not the city of Sacramento can even legally do that. It's public property. So, I don't know how we go about doing that at this one location when you can't do it anyplace else. So that's got to be something considered in the discussions as we move forward.
Good question.
Thank you, Director Howell. And I know we do have Chris Conlon from the city. I don't know if he wants to, who's been taking the lead on the public safety zone, if he wants to add any additional comments. But in terms of the lease, we have not had discussions about payment on the lease. That was initially the thought is we would have a lease agreement with the city, but after research, it was a facilities use agreement and has now turned back into a lease.
Yeah, and because I'm pretty sure that from a legal standpoint, there has to be some payment in order for the lease to be valid. It can be a nominal amount of money, but I think there has to be some payment made.
And Chris, I see you have your hand raised, maybe to address the public safety zone comment. Chris Conlon from the city, Assistant City Manager.
I would be glad to. I'd like to clarify this public safety zone. If somebody can turn on my camera. Or perhaps not. And then also, is it possible that I can share the screen? And I can give you a very quick brief on public safety zone and potential for this site.
You should be able to start your video.
Okay, thank
and share
you.
your screen. Do you see it? Okay.
Video's now, oh, there you go. Okay, excellent. Okay, so in answer to a couple of questions, good questions about what the public safety zone is and isn't. First off, I will tell you that it's already in place. We have it in place in 2 of our other locations at Meadowview Navigation Center, and it's also at the newly built Broadway Alhambra Navigation Center. And I believe if you ask Jay Chenier, he can talk about it in detail about how it's working out there. The public safety zone is designed after something that was done in Los Angeles. It basically puts a perimeter. You see a sign there. That's the same sign that's posted now around Alhambra Navigation Center. It outlines the boundaries, and you'll note what it does. It has a increased enforcement zone for camping and storing of personal property, and then also increases enforcement of state and local laws prohibiting conduct, urinating, defecating in public, trespassing, obstructing a right-of-way, causing or maintaining physical or social nuisance. So a quick explanation of what it is and what it isn't. In order for this to be legally defensible, it has to be related to the site, to the homeless shelter that is being set up. So I'll direct your attention now to what the actual letter looks like that we sign out. So it describes the location. It talks about why this is important, related not to the surrounding, but to the people that are inside in order to protect them against certain activities. The fact that it's a shelter with wraparound services, people experiencing homeless, and it's essential to providing entrance with stability by mitigating their exposure to unsafe conditions and deleterious influences associated with encampments, including but not limited to use of and transactions, including narcotics, acts of violence, physical, verbal abuse, and transmission of illnesses. And that goes back to the sign. Now, in order for this to be operable, it has to have finite boundaries. It can't be arbitrary, like a half-mile circle around the area. So we walked the site last week. We have a draft, and I'm going to emphasize this is a draft, and that's the reason why we haven't sent it out and made it public, because it's very contingent upon what the lease looks like. It's very contingent upon what the site looks like. And we also take a lot of input from the surrounding community because we develop a good neighbor policy, and this is usually one of the last things that goes out based upon all of that. So for this particular site, this is what the draft would look like. And this again would be very contingent upon what that final lease looks like because it has to pass the legal test. You note that it goes along Roseville Road. That would be about halfway across the street, so it would not be inclusive of the entire road. It would just be about halfway across. Then you note that it goes down along here, this road, and then it follows the path. I believe this is Longview, the extension. And then there's another access road that comes out of the site. And then it links back up again on the other side of the railroad tracks back into Roseville Road. This particular site is complex, much more complex than our others, because there are various sectors of state, railroad, and county properties. And to the question that was asked previous, those really are not applicable when we try and do a city site, a city public safety zone, because we cannot enforce necessarily in some of those areas. What we would do is work with people like Caltrans and obviously RT in order to allow them to adopt this zone and allow us to do enforcement in some of these other areas. So, subject to your questions, that's what the public safety zone right now as a draft is looking like.
Thank you very much, Chris. That was a very, very good answer. And my question was really based on, I was unaware that the city of Sacramento had done that at other locations. Great work. I just wasn't sure that it was going to be possible to do that in view of the Boise decision. So thank you.
Thank you.
Let me add one thing really quickly if I can, and then I'll have comments later. So we opened Broadway and Alhambra about a month ago. We're up to, it will eventually serve 100 individuals. We have 57 there right now. We're waiting to go up until we get our security cameras in. But overall, we've had minimal incidents. We have folks from the shelter who are cleaning up around the shelter. So while there are still encampments on X Street and Broadway, overall the area is cleaner and better kept. We don't have people loitering at the gate. We don't have people loitering outside the shelter. Folks are in the shelter and very appreciative of what's going on. So I would say it's been very successful to date. And I think those are lessons that we've taken both from Railroad and Meadowview and applied to Broadway and Alhambra. And I'm sure that this facility would also take lessons that we've learned as we go along.
That's great news. Thanks, Jay.
And I have a couple comments when we get after public comment.
No, that's very good news. Thank you, Jay.
And I have a question. It was noticed that things like propane weren't allowed. How are these people going to cook and feed themselves?
Again, a great question. Thank you for asking that. They don't cook on their own. We're going to bring in meals, and that was discussed in some of the documentation as well. We don't want them using the stoves inside of their vehicles. We want to make this as safe as possible for them. So that's, and same for like the internal restrooms and all of that in the campers. If they have an RV, we're providing restrooms there so that they don't have to use those. Same for showers.
And if I could add one thing to that, Chris, as well, thanks, is one thing we're doing at Alhambra is we really want some community ownership of the shelter. So one of the things we're doing there is the food for the shelter, for the residents of the shelter, is being purchased in the neighborhoods. We're not at 100% yet. We will get there, but it's doing well. In doing that, we want to recycle the funds within the local community.
Thanks, Chris and Jay. Any other questions from directors? Seeing none, Tabitha, do we have public comment?
Let's see. So if you're participating by phone, please push *9 to indicate a desire to comment. And if you're joining us online on Zoom, please push the raise hand button.
And I'm going to allow 3 minutes for comment unless we get a lot to cut down the time, but I'm not seeing any.
Let's see here. I don't see any either.
Any written comment?
I don't have any written comment on that item.
Okay, then I'll turn it over to the board for discussion.
Do you think there'd be an opportunity, Chair? Could we allow Councilmember Lilloye, since he's in attendance, to maybe make a brief statement?
Oh, sure.
Thank you, Chair.
Can I just ask one question? Is that a Brown Act problem, Olga?
Oh, good question, Dave.
Sorry. No, he's a member of the public, and now that he's attending this board meeting.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So if I'm a member of public, I can actually talk like the public, like some of the calls that we get at our council. My name is Sean Lilloye, and thank you very much, members of the board, for giving me the stage. This site is very critical, and I want to thank the board for spending time on this. The unsheltered are within the RT parking lot. To get this site, it will just bring them on the parking lot. It creates a safe environment for them we can get them registered. But more importantly, because they're in a safe environment and we can now enforce some of our laws and traffic laws, it would minimize some of the individuals to be loitering or going to the businesses or residential areas within that site, or even kind of walking around that same parking lot, potentially breaking into cars or what have you. That's going to be minimized tremendously simply because of the security that we're going to have. We're at a position that we have very minimal options based on this, increase of the unsheltered within our county, more or less. Granted, majority are coming from different cities of the county into city of Sacramento. So this is definitely a group event, and I really want to appreciate the board that actually is coming together and making a decision on this badly needed site to fix this problem temporarily until we can find a more permanent solution. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. I want to add one more thing to it. My office has conducted at least 15 to 20 meetings with the communities and business owners about this site. So we make sure the community gets engaged. And that's it. If there's any questions, I'm here to answer. Thanks.
I did have one question for you. Will there be residency limits? I mean, we're talking about a year lease, plus or minus, could be extended. Will the residents be allowed to stay there the whole year?
Well, the whole purpose of this is to bring everybody in, register them, and trying to find more of a permanent housing for them. So the idea of having this for 5-10 years, I hope not. At least that's not my vision, because it is my district. So the 1 year, I'm hoping with working through our partners within county and obviously city of Sacramento, that we can find more permanent housing much faster, so we can move these individuals out of the parking and into a more conducive environment.
So there's no real time limit though for stay. In other words, someone could bring their car into the safe place and stay there a year?
Well, if the agreement is for a year, then there's a potential. But again, in my objective and my push is going to be 1 year, get everybody in, let's find a more permanent site, and then we kind of get the district back to its normality, including the parking lots of RT that are in my district already. So if you get a chance, if you've gone to some of the parking lot, you do have encampments within some of the RT parking lots already.
Yeah.
So to kind of clean those out and make one location as the center, I think it would be a win-win situation for all of us. And I hope that answers your question.
If I can, Mr. Chair, the goal here is 4 to 6 months to bring someone in, hook them up with services, and find them permanent housing. So that's the model that we're using. It is a low barrier shelter, taking people where they are and meeting them where they are. Mm-hmm. But overall, our hope is to move people through our shelters within 6 months.
Yeah, I just recall City of Placer tried it a few years back, and they had all the help and services, and until it got so huge, and until they said, oh, that's it, everybody's got to get out, that's when people got help. They couldn't get them out of the encampment until they said it was closed, and then everybody rushed for help. So I hope that's not the case.
Well, Chair, if I could quickly editorialize, and then I'll jump back into the queue
Sure.
at the end of the line. I mean, we've already moved 100 people out of the safe ground site at WX, which granted wasn't perfectly implemented because we only had 10 days to stand it up. So we didn't get the chance to do safety zones and all the things that we're going to do at this site, but 100 folks have moved out. So the city team's getting pretty good at this in terms of building those relationships and getting folks out, and the capacity at places like X Street and other centers. I mean, all the stuff we're building will hopefully feed into that pipeline and getting folks moved on.
Yeah, and that's what we're finding in Citrus Heights. There's a certain amount of quick, easy success with those that want help. It's the hardcore that we struggle with.
Steve, I have a question for the council member.
Go Go ahead.
So when you're talking about the numbers of homeless who may be hanging out at other RT stations within your district, has anybody surveyed what the magnitude of that is? Can you say that there are more or fewer or the same number of people already there in other locations, given the fact that this particular location will have a population cap on it?
Yeah, so for example, the Swanson RT station, I know beginning of this year, there were about 3 tents within that parking lot. Today, if you go by there, there's about 10 to 15. So can it complement and take these individuals and create a safe environment at the Roseville RT station? Absolutely.
Okay.
So our focus is going to be, and keep one thing in mind, this is exclusively kind of dedicated to District 2. And the goal is to kind of bring the people within the Roseville Road encampment and Swanson Station to kind of bring them all in one general location so they can get the services that's going to be provided by the city and county.
And I do understand that. We all want to serve the people who are normally our residents, not everybody from all over Northern California. And then a question for RT staff, just in terms of kind of the popularity of this station. Where does it rank in terms of number of boardings relative to other stations along the light rail lines?
So I know we showed the pre-COVID usage. The station is quite large. It has 1,087 spaces and is a linear setup. But pre-COVID, it was about 500 plus uses a day for parking. So a well-utilized station, but additional space.
I understand, Chris. I know what the capacity is at Mather Field and at Sunrise, so I understand your point. 1,000 parking places is a very large number.
All right, and Lisa, did you have a response? Unmute. And then I'm going to go to Director Harris and Phil. Did you still have your hand up?
Yeah, I've had my hand up for several minutes now before some of these other hands have been up as well.
Okay. Patience, my friend.
Chair Miller, staff had a follow-up question about the safety priority zone. That's really important to us. And we're very highly concerned about the drawing shared by the city because it allows for illegal encampments or encampments that could jeopardize the infrastructure for SAC-RT. And we would like to ask the board for very specific direction on how large that safety priority zone would be. That's my question.
Okay. Mr. Harris?
Bill, if you have a burning desire, you can go now if you want.
Thanks. I just want to say, first of all, there's several different layers of political geography here involved. We have obviously the jurisdiction of the use, which is RT. We have the site itself, which lies at the border of 2 different supervisorial districts. Rich Desmond, this actually would reside in the western part of Rich Desmond's district. But the district I represent immediately to the west, center line of Roseville Road, are my direct constituents, including McClellan Park, who, believe me, they've expressed to me for several years now their concerns about the growing challenge of homelessness and impacts to their burgeoning business park and the interests of the property owners there. I understand the need to proceed cautiously, and believe me, I appreciate all the concerning questions that some of my fellow directors have been asking tonight. I think that's, reflective of wanting to make sure that we're doing our due diligence on something that, is not something normal for a transit district to necessarily be involved with. But I guess the principal question I would encourage some that might be skeptical of this to ask themselves is, what's the alternative? If we choose not to take advantage of a site that arguably is one of the more optimal sites based on its size, and given what we know about the history of people that are suffering from being unsheltered immediately adjacent to the site, what's the alternative? The alternative is the status quo. And I, for one, representing that area, do not want to see us necessarily overreact to the challenge that this certainly poses, just like some of the other challenges that have been referenced by directors Valenzuela and Chenier. But as they also mentioned, those shelters are, I think, making progress. And I don't think anyone has the expectation that progress is going to be made overnight. But when we have the order of magnitude of what we're facing collectively in terms of trying to find real solutions that are a combination of expressing our compassion, but at the same time understanding that we have to do something to mitigate the impacts associated with homelessness. Again, I would just offer and encourage everyone to think about what the alternative is. And it doesn't bode well for RT, doesn't bode well for the county, doesn't bode well for the city, and it certainly won't bode well for those that are not housed. So I am very supportive of this. Quite frankly, Councilmember Lola Louise, I think, done a very admirable job of making sure that his T's are crossed and I's are dotted when it comes to outreach with the community. He mentioned the number of meetings that he's hosted. I attended one of them, but I could tell you that during the course of that one meeting, the questions there were good questions asked by businesses and residents, and to a question, each one was responded to. And I thought responded to in a way that wasn't confrontational and didn't try to dismiss what are some real concerns. So, I think this is a point where I hope we make the right decision and do what I think is right by our constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Miller. First, I'd like to say I couldn't agree more with Director Cerna. I think his comments were spot on. The directors here should know that we have been doing safe ground sites, and they've been going very well. I see Nick Gulling on the line here from our Department of Community Response, who's been deeply involved with the running of those safe ground sites. If you drive along Roseville Road and you see you just see the conditions along the road, people living in squalor and also in grave danger. There is a tremendous amount of drugs happening on the street there. There are violent crimes being perpetrated against the homeless, some by the homeless. It's kind of a free-for-all. And Councilmember Laloy has been there on the ground many times and knows full well the conditions. These are the conditions that we are experiencing, not only in the city of Sacramento, but throughout the county. So the situation has grown, it's grown more dire. This is an exceptional site to make use of, and I feel strongly that we need to do that. The public safety zone is also an essential piece to make this work. If we can't have a buffer around the perimeter of these kinds of installations, then their efficacy drops very quickly. But if we can, then we have found that we can actually solve a lot of issues for a lot of homeless people and get them on a better trajectory in life. But living in poverty on the streets is extremely difficult. It's difficult for the people who live that way, but it's also difficult for the neighbors surrounding them, because there are incidents that happen, many incidents, many involving crime. There's a lot of mental infirmity and an extreme amount of drug use amongst the homeless population. But we have found that once stabilized in a safe ground as an interim step, we can get people well along the road to a better trajectory in their life. This is a really important project. This parking lot actually has greater capacity, but we've scaled it down, partly due to skepticism and concerns, but partly just really to show the directors here in the board and RT staff that this can be done, that it can be managed well, and that we can have really positive outcomes. I would say this, that I took a couple of business members from the WADA ADP bid down to 6 and W to the safe ground sites in Director Valenzuela's district, and they were absolutely skeptical about doing anything like this on Roseville Road. Absolutely against it, I would say. We spent about an hour and a half with Nick and other staff down there, and when they came away, I'd have to say that their opinion was greatly changed. And I think it's just generally understood that if you look at the conditions outside of this site, and then you look at what can happen if you bring people into safety and hygiene, regular meals, it changes a lot of things. And, this is so imperative. I just want to say I'm highly supportive, and I would like to move the staff resolution to delegate authority to the general manager to negotiate an agreement.
Second.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Second.
Phil?
No, seconds.
Got it. Katie, you got your hand up. I'm now starting to see these things. I apologize.
It's okay. It's a whole new world here on Zoom, Chair. Thank you so much. And I just want to take a quick moment at first just to thank RT staff for all the work you've done on this. It's really commendable. I know this is new. And I'm telling you, when we set up that WX site with Caltrans, they were a lot of panic, a lot of chaos, but we figured it out. And I just appreciate the methodical nature of what you've done, this analysis to bring this back to us. I also really want to also echo my thanks to Councilmember Lowy, who has been doing a fantastic job with this in his district. Everybody knows the WX site because it's so visible. What's less seen in my district is a little tiny site we did on Front Street for parking. It was targeting parkers. It was over on Front Street. And you don't hear about it because it's just sort of there coming along. Folks are moving in, folks are moving out. And what we find with some of these folks is just that sense of home and that sense of peace that they get from being able to sleep through the night, not having to worry about folks pulling up on them, not having to worry about what's going on outside. We see them change really quickly in their manner and attitudes, and just giving staff the chance to get to know them, to figure out, are they self-medicating? Do they have issues? Are they in the system? Do they have caseworkers they've just connected with? It's just been incredible. And the growing partnership with the county, I think that we're really on the precipice of making a big impact on this crisis. I also just drove Roseville Road last weekend just to familiarize myself with it again. It's awful over there. And I hear from service providers and outreach workers who are going up there, those folks are in a really bad spot. And so I just want to echo what my colleagues have said, what Supervisor Cerna said. What is the alternative? We need to do something. And this is a really great opportunity for us to really continue that innovative spirit of RT. Something that I love about being on this board. I think part of the reason we get things like Transit System of the Country of the Year is because we're trying new things. And this is a new thing, and it is a stretch, and it is scary, but it's not new for us. And so I think what we're trying to do is convey a little bit of confidence from the city team, from the county team, that we know how to do this, that we're prepared to support every step of the way. And I think all of the steps that have been done here are really going to ensure success of the site. So Bill already beat me to seconding the motion from Councilmember Harris, but just wanted to echo my colleagues' comments and just how proud I am of RT for getting us to this point. I also just want to say that I talk all the time about this board conversation on this topic because this is the closest I think I've ever been to a regional conversation on this with other cities within the county, with the county and the city all together. And I think this is a real opportunity for us to send a signal to the community that we're working together on a challenge that we know we all share across the county. So thank you for the time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'll put you down as a third. And next I have Director Budge, and then Director Hume, and Brent Berniger also wanted to comment. So go ahead, Linda.
Thank you, Steve. So personally, as I said, I would prefer to have some of these questions answered, the open-ended questions answered before voting on this. But I am sympathetic to Phil's comment about what's the alternative. So Lisa asked us for specific direction, and I would ask her in return how she feels from her law enforcement perspective about the safety zone that is proposed.
Lisa,
Thank you.
On, please.
Okay. I'll answer that really quick. Thank you for asking me. I also have driven over there and taken video and am highly concerned about the encampment and the liability that we can't even get the bridge assessed because the encampments are blocking the ability for an engineer to come and look at the bridge where SACRT is responsible for that bridge. So my hope, and talking with staff, we would prefer a half a mile. We want to make sure that there's no opportunity for folks to be able to come and backfill the area that's cleaned out. And based upon the city's unique ability to create that safety zone, we're just hoping that in partnership, we could make it where it was the safest for SACRT's infrastructure so that when the folks left the area and they went into our parking lot, we wouldn't see a whole new crew creating other opportunities for infrastructure failures like we saw with the bridge.
So it's obvious because of the very curious shape of that whole area, there's going to be places where a half a mile is much larger than what's proposed. Okay.
Linda, I think one thing that you have to consider is that part of that area, a good part of that area is actually the golf course. So we know that a homeless encampment is not going to show up in the middle of the golf course.
No, Carrie, but also on that northwest boundary of the golf course, there's all the shrubby stuff, which simply mirrors the American River Parkway that we're all having to deal with anyway.
Isn't that where the gun club is? I wouldn't be camping. I wouldn't be homeless camping near a gun club.
I don't know anything about the gun club.
There is a gun club over there. Lisa, am I right? Yep.
There is a gun club, but this is what we're talking about. The golf course borders the
gun club,
the Roseville Road, and then it's the gun club.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Mr.
Linda, take yourself for a ride over there.
Yeah, right.
All right. Patrick's got the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Let me lower my hand here. I don't want to delve into the whole complexity of trying to address homelessness as a whole, except to say that it's not a monolithic issue and there's not a panacea that's going to solve it directly. It's an environmental, a humanitarian, and an economic crisis. But I want to just key on something that Director Harris mentioned that I think ought to be at the forefront when we are thinking about this and when we're discussing this and when we're actually deploying public funds. And that is that the ultimate goal in all of this ought to be to change the trajectory of the individual's life. It's not to just make it more comfortable because we're feeling compassionate. It's not just to try and sweep it out of sight so that it's not disrupting business. It's not to get it out of environmentally sensitive areas so that it's not causing a problem. It's to actually recognize that these people are not living their best lives, and we have an obligation to help with that. So I just want to say that's all I'm going to say relative to homelessness. As it comes to the actual use of this site, I have said in the past that, when you're trying to attract what we used to refer to as choice riders, now I think we're trying to attract any riders in the era of COVID, but you want to not have any reasons for them to avoid the service. And so putting a situation where they may feel uncomfortable next to where you're trying to entice them is somewhat counterproductive. That being said, in looking at the layout of this site and the way that the bridges and everything and the whole linear nature of it, it looks like this is a fairly good opportunity to utilize what is probably otherwise an underutilized portion of the RT property. So I'm going to say that I support looking at this, but I want to kind of touch upon the points that that Lisa raised and the points that Linda Budge was just talking about relative to the devil being in the details. And so I think that we've got to have an ironclad agreement, whatever the lease arrangement is, that does not put our FTA funding at risk, or that we are on the hook to repay FTA, that we are being mindful of our relationship with Caltrans and the hammer that they can drop down with respect to our lease agreement, or our cooperative agreement, or whatever it was referred to. And then the big one is that public safety zone, which, if you looked at the things called out on that letter or that sign, those things ought to be illegal on every street corner in every part of our communities. I mean, we have laws against those, so that we have to establish a special public safety zone beyond just the encampment piece is a little bit baffling to me. But the encampment piece is a big one, because, as somebody referenced with the Boise decision, if we do not have an alternative to relocate, then you cannot displace them where they are. So I would be in favor of a larger public safety zone. I think it probably ought to extend to the far side of the property of the golf course. I think that, inviting an opportunity for any kind of camping or loitering on that golf course property adjacent to the site, it would not be a good one. So I think there's more than we can hammer out tonight in favor of the general concept, but I think that we need to be mindful about some of these larger issues that we're, being very diligent. So thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Brent, you had a response?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Director Miller. I just wanted to follow up on a question that Director Budge brought up, which was the parking lot utilization. I was going to see if I could pull up just a quick share screen of what that looks like to further answer her question. Director Budge, I think you asked here's just a spreadsheet that we do of tracking the utilization at each of these locations. As you'll see, Roseville Road is kind of one of our larger. If I scroll over to the right, and sorry, there's a lot of data here. I'll just kind of focus you in this 1,087 on this chart is the lot utilization, and then the full utilization. And this is what it's been over these periods of time. And you'll be able to notice that Roseville Road and some of the ones to the far right, which are going to be Meadowview, those tend to be, Franklin is the one. You see those as some of the larger sites at RT. And I just wanted to answer that question. And then I also wanted just to make a quick comment on what Director Hume mentioned, which was maybe just consideration when the FTA comes back, or if Caltrans comes back with some nuances, we just make sure that SAC-RT is not out of pocket for any of those costs if it requires us to pay back the FTA. That would be the big concern. Thank you.
Thanks, Brent. Mr. Chenier.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few things. First of all, I also want to thank RT staff and also the city staff for putting in the work. I'm sure for RT staff, it's not something you ever figured you'd be working on, but it's much appreciated. And when you have a crisis, and this is clearly a crisis, we all have to stand up and do the right thing. I also want to say, as far as some of the details that we've been talking about, I mean, we have a great general manager. Thank you, Henry. We trust him to run quite a large system, and I think we should trust him not to make any decisions that would imperil the existence of RT at that site or any other. So I'm very happy to delegate authority to him. I know he has the best interests of RT at heart, and then also the community. I also want to thank my colleagues who are here and Supervisor Cerna. I don't think I could have been more articulate about the need to do this. So Phil, thank you very much for your comments. I think they were spot on. Just to pick up a little bit on something Director Hume said, we need to remember that these are individuals. This is not just about safe parking and RVs there. It's not just about the safety zone. This really is about individuals who are residents of Sacramento. They don't come from far and wide. We know from both national and local research that most homeless are close to either where they grew up or where they worked. We all want the familiarity of our surroundings, and this is no different. So we have not found, and we've checked this at Railroad, we've checked this at Meadowview, we've checked this at WX, and we know again from national data that probably 85 to 90% of the homeless are homeless in an area that is familiar to them. So either where they grew up or where they were working. Nobody likes to be in this position to have to make these decisions. It's unfortunate. Nobody would want, and none of my colleagues here who are council members and supervisors want to spend their time dealing on homeless issues. But we don't have a choice. And we only can get out of this if we do it together. We need to take some strategic risk because what's just going on now is not working. It's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse if we don't stem the tide and if we don't turn it around and make sure that we do everything possible to get people into a safe environment, to get them with services. We know we have people at WX, and WX is very hard. It's a tough population with a lot of drug use. We have people coming in every day who are saying, I want to get better. Can you get me services? I don't think this will be any different. We need to help people get a better life. That's our job. And so I hope we do it. And I'm going to be very supportive and look forward to voting yes on this issue. Finally, I want to thank Mr. Laloe. I'm glad it's not a Brown Act violation and that you could speak here. You know, we all have to show leadership in our own districts. We're all taking the brunt of it. We have letters and emails and texts and calls every day. We need to deal with this stuff. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Jay. Anybody else wish to speak? I finally figured out the whole hand raise thing. Sean, would you like to, you have your hand up?
Thank you very much, Mr. Director. And thanks to every single board member that made the wonderful comments that we all heard. I just wanted to add a couple of other nuances to the facts of what's happening on the ground on Roseville Road right now tonight. Keep in mind that you have actually families that are on there, and with families come children. So there are children on the Roseville Road campsite, and they vary in age from 1 to about 13 years old. And there's not just 1 or 2, there are quite a few. So I'm very concerned for these the youth that are out there. And as my colleague, Director Chenier indicated, and Director Valenzuela, once they come in a safe environment, based on what I've studied and what I've listened to other cities and nationwide, once they feel that they're in a comfortable and trustworthy environment, those defensive guards slowly come down, and they're more eager to, as Director Chenier indicated, to get help, whether it's drugs, whether it's mental illness, whatever it is. So I just want to make sure that all the directors recognize that it's not just typical hobos that are going down from one city to another city. We have families out there, and we have children out there residing in Roseville Road campsite. So that's all from me. Again, I want to thank RT staff, city staff. I really want to thank all the directors for the time that you've spent on this topic. As Director Chenier indicated, this is not the normal conversation, but then again, city, county, RT, it's not normal for any of us. I mean, this is just brand new. So again, I want to thank everybody for your time, and I can stick around if you have more questions, or I can leave. I don't know what the guidelines are, the protocol of RT meetings are. So let me know what the understanding is. Thank you very much.
As a guest speaker, you can stay as long as you like. And
I just want to thank everybody for all of their work on this. And I was the one that started the questions, and I hope no one misunderstood where I'm coming from. As long as the details get worked out, I think this is a great use of that space. Having lived in the area almost forever, I always wondered why that parking lot was so large, and and why people that were parking at the very end of that parking lot and walking all the way to the station didn't just walk to their destination. So I think that's a great use of space that's not being otherwise used. And I think the city of Sacramento is doing a really, really good job at trying to address the issues and get the details worked out.
Thanks, Carrie. Just really quickly too, I think the golf course, because it's a private operator, I'm not sure it could even be involved in the safety zone, but it's private property, so it would be trespassing.
Yeah, they'd have to do a trespass.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not worried about the golf course. Anybody that sets up a tent on a golf course is an idiot.
Only if I'm playing golf.
Well, they'd probably be safe if I were getting at them, but most other people actually are better golfers than I am.
They say the only time you hit someone is when you aim at them.
All right. Are there any other comments? If not, we'll wrap this up. I just wanted to be clear. I'm totally for all the efforts and the good efforts to help. I mean, that's why we all got involved. Don't get me wrong. And with the RT hat on, that's my concern here tonight. And so we're talking transit. That's our purview. This is a little out of our purview. I get it. And so my biggest thing in going forward with this is the indemnification. And, if we lose funding from FTA, we can't afford that. So that's another big factor for me. But I'm willing to try anything. I remember when I got on board in 2005, we were halfway through the 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness, and it just got worse from there out. So I think this whole navigation is the way to go to provide services and stuff. So let's see how I really want to view this as a pilot project, and if we can get over that Caltrans hurdle and FTA, away we go. So,
Chair Miller, Director Kennedy has his hand up.
Oh, thank you. He just popped up in the left corner.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Chair. I actually wasn't going to say anything until you just mentioned that. I will tell you this, that a couple of years ago, it was proposed to do something similar at the Florin site, and Jay and I had many conversations about that. I did not support it because I was wearing my RT hat only. I will tell you that, what a difference 2 years makes. And I am no longer of the position that we need to look first at the viability and the health of RT because this is such a societal issue, and it's something that it's a humanitarian issue. I think it transcends transit. So I have come full circle in which I do support this. I think it is important, and I will support them when they come forward in the district that I represent as well. I am a YIMBY when it comes to this. And I mean, it's just, yes, we as RT board members need to look at the health and viability of transit, but we as human beings, we as Sacramentans, we as Northern Californians need to look at helping our fellow neighbors who are unhoused. And so I am willing to look beyond just what is in front of me as an RT board member and do what I think is the right thing from a humanitarian level. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
And Director Natoli also has his hand up.
Oh, Don, I haven't heard from you all night. When I see that. Oh, there he is.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got cut off. I couldn't get back in, so I figured I'd put *9 in enough time that I could get back into the meeting. I've been on the entire time. I just would note all the comments and certainly prepare to support the staff recommendation. And there's some work yet to come, but I think it's been well said by a number of folks. So I'm prepared to support the motion. Thanks.
Okay. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? If not, we've had a motion from Harris and a second by Cerna and a third by Valenzuela. Would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Director Budge.
Chair Miller, I'm sorry, this is Olga. I just want to make sure we all know what the motion is exactly, because we're going to have to reduce it to a resolution.
That's a good point.
So what the staff recommended is that the board direct and authorize the general manager to negotiate a three-party agreement between and among the city, Caltrans, and SAC-RT that would include the protections included in the facilities use agreement and program guidelines that the party previously negotiated, and that such delegation would be contingent upon the FTA concurring in the action without the requirement that SAC-RT reimburse FTA for the facility.
So with that, are there any changes to that resolution?
What about the direction that Lisa asked for in terms of the size of the safe barrier zone?
My comment would be, I think that we need to keep in mind what the city of Sacramento assistant city manager said, that it has to be legally defensible and you can't just pick a random distance. The golf course, in my opinion, is not going to be an issue ever. So I think it needs to be whatever we can defend legally, given the Boise decision. And I'm going to add to that if there has to be a payment of the lease, that needs to be the responsibility of the city of Sacramento. Then this is all the details that need to be associated with that. But I just want Henry, as the delegated authority for the negotiator of that, to be aware that that's what I would like to see. So if the maker and the seconder of the motion are good with that, then hopefully that was clear, Olga.
And Carrie, you could say that the safety zone should be as large as possible. I think.
No, I don't mean to say that. I mean, it should be whatever's
think
legally defensible.
Yeah. But within that, the bigger we can make it, the better we are.
I think so.
Okay. So the safety zone should be as large as legally permissible?
Wait a minute. It should be included in the motion, and it should be an alternate motion.
Yeah.
I said it should be as big as it needs to be that's legally defensible. If you want to make it bigger, Jay, that's okay. I wasn't trying to be a big meanie.
No.
Directors Harris and Cerna, are you okay with that?
Yeah, listen, as the director of the motion, I'd like to clarify a little bit. Chris Conlon, can you pipe in here? I would tend to agree with Lisa Hines that if we can expand the defense area to include the critical infrastructure of RT, and that is legally defensible, we should do so. I mean, there was very significant damage done to the underpasses, and we need to prevent this. And one of the reasons for doing this project is to make a defense of critical infrastructure. That is, in fact, one of the legal bases upon which the defense zone can be predicated.
So a little bit of clarification. So the RT station under the city ordinance is already critical infrastructure and is considered to be defensible just by its own right, to include 25 feet around the entire perimeter per the city's critical infrastructure ordinance. The road crossings, the overpasses, and the railroad tracks are also considered to be critical infrastructure under the city ordinance. What is undefined is ownership. So for instance, in the case of the RT rail line, the RT rail line is owned by RT and policed by RT, but that RT rail line within 25 feet in the station, again, are already defensible. The roads that are owned by Caltrans, if they so choose, they can adopt the city ordinance on infrastructure and use it. We've had discussions with them several times about that. As far as underneath of the area, the one that Lisa's talked about several times, that property is owned by Caltrans. They've already fenced a portion of it off because PG&E is doing some work under there. There is still a portion that they have not fenced or cleaned. We're in discussions with them about the fact that they should clean that, and we recommend that they do fence it to protect that infrastructure. But, you know, we only have so much leeway as a city when we're dealing with a state agency.
Understood, Chris. Well, thanks for that clarification. So here again, I would say instead of micromanaging this, we delegate authority to our manager, Henry Lee, to work out these details with Chris Conlon and the various jurisdictions. That is the very point of adopting this resolution, in my opinion. So I assume, Director Cerna, you'll accept that clarification and we can move forward with the staff recommendation?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. So I think now it's time to call the roll.
Okay, Director Budge.
Well, I am concerned about the number of loose ends that everyone has identified that need to be wrapped up. I do have a great deal of confidence in Henry and the fact that he would not enter an agreement that would be that would not be in RT's best interest. The lateness last week with which this came to light, all of these issues came to light, is very concerning. But having said that, I'll vote yes.
Thank you, Linda.
Aye.
Director Howell.
Yes.
Director Hume.
Aye.
Director Jennings.
I have 100% confidence in General Manager, and I vote yes.
Director Kennedy.
Same, aye.
Director Natoli.
Aye.
Director Chenier.
Aye.
Director Cerna.
Aye.
Director Valenzuela.
Yes.
And Chair Miller.
A slightly reserved yes.
And with that, the item passes at 100 votes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is Director Natoli. I'm about to lose my phone service here. I don't have a place to plug in. My phone's going to go dead. So I'm going to lose you any moment. I won't be able to join you for the closed session. So I just want to let you know that. Okay.
Okay. Take care. Be safe.
Thank you.
Okay. General Manager's report.
Good evening, Chairman, Board of Directors, and the public. I would just like to make some brief comments and updates. First, with the economy opening up and more people are vaccinated, Psychiatric has experienced a sharp increase in ADA paratransit trips, with Psychiatric Go carrying nearly as many riders daily as we were pre-pandemic. As a result of this labor shortage, we have received a few complaints from paratransit riders regarding scheduling challenges. While workforce shortages are impacting all sectors of the economy locally and nationally, we have implemented several new processes to improve recruitment and incentivize employment with Psychiatry, such as increasing entry-level wage by 15% and giving 2,000 hiring and retention bonus to new hires and many other innovative initiatives. And we have provided an update to our Mobility Advisory Committee earlier, and we really appreciate the support from MAC Chair Pam Freund and other partners. Thank you. Today's action by the board will allow us to broker Psychiatric Go trips with other private sector providers to meet increased demand and realize efficiencies in service. More than half of our paratransit riders are ambulatory, and this brokered service will allow SACRT to meet increased mobility demands. We're hopeful these actions and improvements will better serve our customers. I would also like to highlight that SACRT, Eurobus, and UC Davis will be entering into a MOU to better serve the Causeway Connection service from UC Davis campus to the UC Davis Medical Center. Ridership on the Causeway has increased from an average 40 riders in the last year, many months during the pandemic, to over 110 passengers daily recently. This is an important transit connection that links Davis with Sacramento, and this agreement will allow SACRT to operate the entire service for over 8 months or even longer, starting next month or later. We're happy to help our partners and fulfill the needs of students, faculty, and riders, because Eurobus is experiencing very serious workforce shortage right now. Then the next item is, after a year of many event cancellations during the pandemic, the region is safely reopening, and many festivals, concerts, and community gatherings are returning. At the beginning of October, SACRT provides a supplemental bus service to assist the Aftershock music festival. The 4-day concert helped generate about over $30 million in economic activity, and SACRT carried over 5,000 passengers for that event, greatly mitigating traffic impacts after end of the evenings. We have also provided special service to assist with the Folsom City Blues Half Marathon, the California Clean Air Day, and the homeless transfer during the raining weather in the last couple of days, and more. We're proud to help support the Sacramento region on these important events. I would also like to provide an update on SACRT Ridership, which continues upward trajectory. In September 2021, compared to Ridership in September 2020, we saw a 34% increase in trips. Specifically, bus ridership was up 57%, light rail was up 10%, and the demand response was up 40%. For the first quarter of this year, July through September, our total ridership is up 22%. The uptick in ridership is driven largely from SACRT's Ride-Free RT program and students returning to the classroom and traveling to other destinations. We have been working hard to raise awareness for the program, and staff has distributed nearly 250,000 Ride-Free RT cards to the community. In September, there were over 210,000 students boardings, accounting for approximately 25% of all riders in the system. Student ridership is 7 times higher or more now than it was a year ago. I also want to remind everyone that we have relaunched our airport bus service as of September. On October 4th, California Transportation Commission Chair Lawton flew to Sacramento Airport to meet with the governor's office and Cal STA Secretary Kim. She rode our bus and she shared with us some positive reviews of her experience. She was very pleased that our service was on time, well utilized by other passengers, and had a very informative operator. To conclude my remarks this evening, I would like to share a short video, less than 1 minute. As you know, in 2 weeks, SACRT will be honored by the American Public Transportation Association as the Outstanding Transit System of the Year 2021. And Chair, the Director Valenzuela will join staff to accept the award, which is really prestigious. We are truly proud of this achievement and the progress we have made in the recent years and the innovations we have implemented to lead the industry. Please play the video, Jessica. We don't have voice. Jessica? Jessica, we don't have voice.
Yeah, I think Tabitha is playing the video. We're working on that. 1 second.
Okay, talk amongst yourselves.
I think you might have to share the sound, Tabitha, when you share the screen. Otherwise, we can't hear it. It's an extra option at the bottom.
Back to Zoom.
The Sacramento Regional Transit District is honored to receive Apta's 2021 Outstanding Public Transportation System of the Year Award. This recognition is a culmination of SAC-RT's tremendous work to build a bigger and more innovative transit system that not only improved efficiencies, but attracted back riders to its system. Within 3 years, SAC-RT lowered fares, annexed 3 cities back to its system for better regional collaboration, reimagined the entire bus network, introduced the nation's largest micro-transit service, created the nation's first system-wide students ride-free program, secured $400 million to modernize the light rail system, and increased operating reserves by 500%, all for the first time in the agency's history. The pandemic didn't slow down SAC-RT. We successfully launched new services, all while keeping employees safe, protecting jobs, and remaining fiscally strong. On behalf of SAC-RT's employees, board, and community, thank you, Apta, for this recognition.
Very nice.
Thank you, Chair. That's the conclusion of my report.
Very good. Next item, please.
Reports, ideas, and questions from directors, if any.
Seen everybody shake their heads no.
I see Director Cerna and Director Hume both have their hands up.
Oh, I'm on the wrong page. Okay, there we go. Director Cerna, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to publicly thank Henry for something he mentioned in his director's report, and that had to do with aftershock. And, Henry rightfully called out the economic contribution that this event now contributes to the region, measured in the tens of millions of dollars. And having worked since the inception of Aftershock several years ago with the promoters to grow the event and to do so responsibly, I can simply say that it doesn't come with a fair amount of last-minute challenges. And one of those last-minute challenges, to be certain, this year had to do with the need for those shuttles and the shuttle service from the former Sleep Train amphitheater parking lot, which has done wonders to really manage the traffic volumes that we'd otherwise have coming into Discovery Park and South of Thomas. So I just want to say again, thank you, Henry, so much for being Johnny on the spot yet again when it comes to the need for problem solving as it relates to some of the other endeavors that we're pursuing here in the county and the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hume.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to, for future agenda items, I'd like to ask staff to bring back a discussion regarding the allocation of our seats on the board now that we're moving from weighted voting to one seat, one vote. I'd just like to have us look at the allocation of those votes, if we may.
That's a fair request. Henry?
Yes, we will do so. We will conduct some analysis and bring back to the board.
Thank you.
All right. Seeing no other hands, do we have any more items of business there, Tabitha?
We have the closed session item. Do you anticipate having to report out after that?
Not for this item. I'm told we will not be reporting out any reportable action.
Okay, perfect. So if at this time we'll adjourn this Zoom open session webinar, and if I could have all the board of directors, Henry, Shelley, Brent, and Olga refer to the email link to join the closed session meeting, and then we'll continue there.
Tabitha, I don't have a second link.
Okay, it's